Hi, this is the video for Daf Mem Zayin of Masechet Ketubot, of Tractate Ketubot. As you probably know by now, I'm Josh Kulp, and I do the Daf Shevui program for the Conservative Yeshiva. Hi. So I wanted to go over a little deeper into a Braita, a Talmudic source with a dispute that appears at the end of the page, and do something I haven't done too often, touch on a dispute between the Rishonim, the early medieval commentators, as to the meaning of this Braita, and we'll talk about its importance in halachic history. The Braita says, Tanu Rabbanan, Katav la perot ksut ukelim sheyavo ima mibeit avia lebeit bala. The father writes for his daughter produce, clothing, or various other kinds of coverings that should come with her from her father's house, meaning from her house to her husband's house, umeta, and then the daughter dies. Lo zacha habal bedvarim ha'ela halalu. The husband has not acquired these things, and they would go back to her father. Mishum Rabbi Natan Amru zacha habal bedvarim halalu. The husband receives these things. So, according to Rashi, the discussion here is a girl who is betrothed. And so according to the first opinion, the father writes for her, let's say, a dowry. We're probably talking about a dowry over here. The father writes for her a dowry. The girl is betrothed, but she doesn't yet go to her husband's house. Remember, betrothal, she stays at her father's home, and marriage is signified by her moving into her husband's home. So she dies while she's still in her father's home. The husband doesn't get these things, which makes a lot of sense because the father wrote her these things so that she would bring them to her husband's house. She died before she ever was married, and therefore the husband does not get the dowry. Rabbi Natan says the husband does get the dowry. Now, the problem with Rashi's understanding of this dispute is Rabbi Natan. Why should the husband get the dowry when they haven't really been married yet? Yes, they've been betrothed, but the father clearly wrote this dowry in order for his daughter to be married. He didn't write the dowry just for the husband to come and take it, never having married his daughter. So Rabbeinu Tam, who is actually Rashi's grandson, but is probably the most famous of the Tosafot, Rabbeinu Tam understands the machloket, the dispute, differently. Rabbeinu Tam understands this as referring to a case where the girl has already been married, but at first he explains the stuff has not yet come to her husband's home. In other words, the girl got married, but the dowry has not made its way, physically speaking, from the father's home to the husband's home. In that case, the first opinion in the Braita would say, since she's been married, since the stuff hasn't gotten there yet, the husband hasn't taken physical possession of it, therefore the girl does not get it, the husband doesn't get it, the girl is dead. Whereas Rabbi Natan says, look, they got married, after all, and therefore, since they were married, the husband takes possession of the dowry. Now, what's interesting is Rabbeinu Tam and other halachic authorities in the medieval period went a step further in accepting their first opinion, and they even made various decrees that the husband doesn't fully own the dowry for 1, maybe 2, or sometimes I think even more years after the marriage. And the fear is quite evident. Let's say a tragic example. The girl's married. She moves into her husband's home. And it has happened quite frequently in those days. Girls died in childbirth. The girl dies while having her first child. Perhaps the child lives. Perhaps even more likely the child does not live. Now the father's dowry has gone over to this man, this husband, without the father ever having any offspring through that marriage. And we're going to learn a lot about dowries in this chapter. One of the main points of the dowry is for the father of the bride to transfer his property to his grandchildren through his daughter. All right, we'll go over this more later in the chapter, but you can see here that if his daughter dies, again, tragically, right? He's not going to have the opportunity to do that. So they said that there is going to be a waiting period, 1-2 years, enough time probably for her to have a child and live through it. And then at a certain point, after all, you can't withhold from him the legal rights to the dowry forever. At that point, he takes the legal rights, the husband takes the legal rights to the dowry. But I want you to keep this in mind as we learn this chapter. The dowry is a very important, perhaps of primary importance in rabbinic marriages, or at least in marriages as understood by the rabbis, and in marriages as practiced in the ancient world. And when the husband gets the dowry, what happens to the dowry after the wife dies? What happens to the dowry after the husband dies? The laws of the dowry are very important in the ancient world and continue to be important in many traditional societies to this day.